And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, from our episode break here. Welcome to Coast to Coast. I'm Anthony, and just like in the previous ep,
I'm Jacob.
yes, and
You're watching Disney Channel.
yeah, you're gonna draw it. You got to draw it. I don't know where you're gonna draw it, but
Oh my bad.
I'm sure he did the motion.
Barufi's
Yeah,
here
I
as
did.
well, of course, as per usual.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was gonna say hi. I'm Barufi, but someone came in the way. So
Yeah. Well, it happens to the best of us, I suppose.
hi, I'm Barufi. There you go.
Yeah, my bad. Didn't mean to interrupt or anything.
God,
No, I think you did actually. I think there was malicious intent,
He
quite
definitely
frankly.
Probably. Broofy,
Yeah.
is that image I sent in the group chat? Is that you?
What is it? It's gonna be some goofy shit. It's gonna be some goofy
And they
shit.
invite you over for game night, not realizing how competitive you.
It is definitely me. It is definitely me.
Is that all of us then?
I think so, right?
I will start a fight with you.
We're gonna have we have to do a board game stream where we're all wearing a jigsaw mask.
Why? Why?
We're all playing games. We all
yeah,
want to play a
that's
game.
fair.
I ain't playing no games. I don't know what you're saying. He's playing games.
And I ain't afraid of no ghost. Really important distinction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
Well,
I wet the bed every night we play Faz.
Oh,
Phasmophobia is actually so fun.
Yeah. I love seeing the people are getting to enjoy it who don't have computers because it's now on console and they're getting to hop in on the fun.
mm-hmm.
I joined a pub lobby a couple of days ago and someone was fucking talking. Someone was fucking talking through a PS5 controller on Faz, and I just thought that shit was so funny.
Nice. Too bad the ghost can't hear it
All
though
right.
on console yet.
They can't?
They have right now the ghosts on console editions don't have voice recognition. They just have a dialogue tree when interacting with objects. Yeah, it's a little bit of a downside, but at least they have a solution to patch it with the dialogue trees.
That is true. It is still the same game functionally, so that's what matters in the end run,
Right.
end of it. But,
Yeah.
dude, I am excited, everybody. We have a presentation on the current state of the 49ers here. Anthony, take us away.
Look, it's not a presentation by any means, but it is going to be
a presentation.
It's going to be a passionate rant about this football team, and man, I just have no freaking idea. I have many ideas, but it's just so strange how this season has been and why we're at the spot that we are in the season. I am done with this fucking team. that's what the title of this clip is gonna be. Now, can they absolutely, buckle in and run the table? Even yes, they've done that
Just to
before.
lose in the Super Bowl,
possibly, and that would just hurt all the more. But look, they've had their backs against the wall many times in seasons past, and they have done it. They have gotten through it and made the playoffs and made a run in the playoffs in seasons past as well. Most recently, of course, in 2021, they started 4-5. They started 3-5 actually. Really dire straits. They finished the season 10-7 on a final game against the Rams. It was a win and get in because the Saints had just lost or beaten to. I don't remember how it went that year specifically, but it was between the Saints and the Eagles.
The Saints won.
Okay, and then that meant the Eagles were knocked out. So then the Niners, all they had to do was win their game and get in. And they beat the Rams in Los Angeles to get it into the playoffs. So then they make it all the way to the NFC Championship game, and they lost to the Rams in Los Angeles that go around. But look, this team's done it before, and that's what I want to preface this with. The 49ers there's a misconception about the 49ers, and that's that they do their best work early in the year. But that's not true, and that really has never been the case in the Shanahan era. Even in their first season coaching, with Shanahan as the coach and Lynch as the GM, their first season they started with a 1-9 record. And they at the trade deadline they acquired Jimmy Garoppolo, and Jimmy Garoppolo carried that team 5 straight wins afterwards to a 6-10 record to finish the year there. Obviously, those are different circumstances for sure, but the point is that late in the year, the 49ers do their best work generally. So they can absolutely do that again, but a lot has to change. And I think the game on Sunday against the Seahawks really exemplifies a lot of the issues with this team right now. I am not a crazy 49er fan in that I am going to say that Shanahan needs to be fired. I think that is absolutely absurd. I think that would be a big mistake for the organization. I think the teams that are looking for a head coach and will be looking for a head coach this offseason would be licking their chops at the prospect of having Kyle Shanahan as their head coach, because it's Kyle Shanahan. This is a guy who's been in these, he's been a team builder, literally a team builder. And so that would be a big mistake, but there is no denying that the coaching on both sides of the football and special teams has been pretty much a disaster all year, in my opinion. Obviously special teams among the worst in the NFL, if not the worst in the NFL, in a lot of different categories for special teams. Every single week, it feels like there's a huge blunder, whether it's in the return game or Jake Moody, 2 weeks ago, missing 3 field goals in his first game back and making that game look a lot closer than it was. In fact, in that game, not just Jake Moody's missed three missed field goals, but there was Daryl Luter Jr. On the punt return had knocked into Jacob Cowing and subsequently hit the ball for the Bucs to recover it, and then they scored a touchdown on that, when they got the ball back in the red zone. And so they were basically spotted, the Bucs, they were basically spotted 16 points in that game alone. And that's been a big problem all season. It goes without saying. I've been saying it every week pretty much. But there are other problems too. And a lot of these problems I've probably been mentioning every week of this season because it's just an ongoing thing. I think that if Kyle doesn't, even if he doesn't relinquish the play calling duties next season, I really think that he needs someone else in the house with him to sort of give him a reality check in a way and really make him understand, or not even really make him understand, but I don't know. There's just something very off about the play calling this year and the drop back game this year. There were concerns about it in seasons past, but it's gotten so much worse and it's so much more exemplified this year. And I think it's because he doesn't really have anyone to rein him in from being getting into his head too much, in my opinion. So I think that needs to happen for sure. It's really brutal on offense. I think the pass protection on the offensive line has been terrible all year. Even Trent Williams has looked like a shell of his former self. You can't really attribute it to the slow start anymore because we're almost 2/3 through the season. Like, you need to be better. And it's not like he's been bad, but he has not been Trent Williams. And when the rest of the line looks the way it is, when McKivitz is at right tackle, fumbling almost every play, and Jake Brendel is the 40th ranked center on PFF grades with 32 NFL teams. Like 40th ranked. That is brutal. And the fans, for some reason, really like Aaron Banks. I'm not a fan of Aaron Banks at all anymore. I thought he was looking like a really promising left guard. He had couple really good seasons to start his career, but the past couple, I felt that he's fallen off, especially in pass pro. So that's a big problem too. You basically have 3 big holes on the offensive line, and that creates a product of inconsistency, and it creates a product of when our drop back pass game is as concerning as it is week in and week out. It's made even worse when Brock Purdy doesn't have protection consistently, and he has to play a little bit of hero ball and use his legs to escape and extend plays. So that doesn't help. Nobody really, like I said, on the O-line is playing well right now. None of them are consistent in pass pro, and none of them are probably even league average in run blocking. Now, I don't have the stats there to back it up. The only one I really had was the Jake Brendel 40th ranked center
Source,
per
trust me,
PFF
bro.
because you can source, trust me, bro, because I watch this team every week very passionately.
Yeah,
And
your O line is bad
they
at run
are.
blocking.
They are so bad. I mean, if you watch the game on Sunday against the Seahawks, there was not a single explosive play on the ground for McCaffrey. Not a single hole for him to get through. And look, he's missing, fresh off of the Achilles tendonitis and everything, he's missing that first step quickness that we usually see from him, but his vision is the same. His vision hasn't worsened because of an Achilles injury. It's the first step, and it's the quickness in the backfield. He doesn't have any opportunity to get down the field on any explosive plays because he's hit behind the line of scrimmage almost every play. Like, that's just unacceptable. And it's a problem that the 49ers have not really addressed in years past with the draft. They let Mike McGlinchey go 2 years ago in the offseason, and he signs with Denver. And, at the time, you don't want to overpay for Mike McGlinchey, who's, a good run blocker, but just maybe average in pass protection. But now we're seeing like McKivitz is the alternate option here, and this is way worse. It's less money, but it's way worse. And McGlinchey's looking really good in Denver now. So that's a huge blunder, in my opinion. The other thing on Sunday with the run blocking that I think was made very apparent is that George Kittle is such an important aspect of this football team. Not just because he's a fantastic player and a great tight end, great pass catcher. He does open things up a lot over the middle of the field, and when running routes in the passing game, but in the run game, he's such a difference maker with his blocking skills and ability to get down the field quickly to tackle people at that second and third level, and something that we didn't get to do on Sunday because we didn't have him there. And so I think that he's another element that, because he wasn't playing in that game, that's just one less guy, and I know that the whole take is that they just have an Avengers unit on offense, but it's not the same. And it's not the same when the offensive line is horrible. I mean, the meme again, after the Bengals Chargers Sunday Night Football game, the meme was brought back to light with the Joe Burrow throwing behind a bad O-line to Jamar Chase versus Justin Herbert throwing behind Joe Alt throwing to anybody. That meme has become relevant once more, and I feel a very similar way with the 49ers right now. I think Brock Purdy's shown throughout the season, he's had bad games, like against Seattle. It wasn't a very good game, but he's shown that he's capable of leading an offense in this way, an offense that is shorthanded at receiver, an offense that doesn't have their all-pro running back. I think he's capable of doing that, but it doesn't help at all. It's such a big hindrance when you don't have anybody to rely on in pass protection. It's really bad. The other thing about the passing offense, though, is the lack of separation from these receivers. Deebo Samuel, most people have known this about him over the years, but he doesn't beat man coverage. He is a zone killer. He is, a big yak threat because of zone coverage, right? He just can settle in a coverage, and once he gets the ball in his hands, he can turn on the jets and run faster than almost anybody in the NFL. But against man coverage, he can't do anything. And I think that it becomes that certainly is accentuated when a person like Ayuk, who was opposite him last season and had a huge year, when he's injured. Now you don't have that dichotomy in a way on this offense, and you can't have them lined up on the same side anymore, where the defense really has trouble in that regard, where with Ayuk on the outside and Deebo in the slot, or even Deebo in the backfield on the same side. You don't have that kind of creativity with this offense when a guy like Ayuk, who I think is really like a borderline top dog receiver in the NFL, and he's being paid like one, so he should be there. But when you don't have him around, I think that limits this offense quite a lot. And, you can't rely on Ricky Pearsall yet. He's only 3 games into his NFL career. You can't rely on him. He's a rookie. and he's shown flashes, but there's still obviously a lot to his game as well
That
that
touchdown
needs to
was
be
crazy.
improved. It was a fantastic. He's had a couple of fantastic catches and fantastic plays so far, but you're putting a lot on his plate when he's the only person in this receiving core that could beat man coverage. And what Seattle did on Sunday was really great. Defensively was they were bracketing that side of the field that Ricky was on, so they can properly cover him to prevent the yak explosions and prevent, the throws outside the numbers that Brock has really made a name for himself on, in his time in the NFL. And so ultimately, I think the receiving core looking into the offseason needs to address this, because Ayuk isn't going to be back probably till mid-season next season, with it being an ACL injury. And Pearsall is going to be healthy, yes, and Jennings will be back again for one more year. But I think, as sad as it sounds, as sad as it is to be a Niner fan saying this, but I think Debo has to go. I think he's slow. He's a lot slower than he is, than he has been in years past. He's dropped weight, but it's clearly not right for his body. And so he's slow, but he also lacks effort. And people like JT O'Sullivan and his QB school and his, film analysis on the 49ers, he brings it up almost every time he uploads a video on Brock Purdy, is that when Debo doesn't get the ball, he's jogging out there. And this is just not what this team is. This team, it feels like for a lot of these players, they've lost that fire, the fire in their gut, if you will, that has carried them to being one of the more physically imposing and dominant teams in the NFL in years past. It feels like they've gone soft. And that's really, really unfortunate. I actually made an analogy shortly after the game on Sunday that I think really, really applies well here, even if it's a little bit imperfect. But the 49ers remind me a lot of an old money, like financial mogul. Like, think of a Warren Buffett, right? He's still very rich. He's still a very wealthy, powerful man who has a lot of influence, but this is an old money person. He's not someone that is going to be adapting with AI, for example, on this market. Whereas the Detroit Lions are a new money type of team, and they can be, as much as I don't like this person right now, they can kind of be compared to like an Elon Musk type. They are adapting to times. They are the people that are on the cutting edge, innovating. And so this is the new cream of the crop team in the NFC and the NFL, quite frankly, even though they haven't won a Super Bowl yet. And so I really think that there is this almost prestige look with the 49ers, that they're known to be this physical, imposing team that everybody hates to play. But this year they've been very soft. Just overall, very soft team. So it's not like them. It's not in their character.
So question.
Yeah.
All right. When the Dolphins went out and inevitably beat the Niners in Miami, right? We're going to be clinching the playoffs?
Is that your question?
Just wanted to clear that up. Yeah, that's my question.
Well, yeah, I think the Dolphins, especially after the Bengals loss on Sunday night, I think they have a fairly decent chance looking at the playoff picture right now to make the postseason. And if they do, obviously my statements with Mike McDaniel wouldn't come to fruition. He obviously wouldn't be fired. So yes, I think that they're going to make the playoffs. Or I don't know yet, but it's looking better than it was 2 weeks ago, for example, of course.
Zach Taylor still having a job is crazy.
Yep, that's another one.
I used to say this about Zach Taylor, that to me there was nothing Zach Taylor did that was marginally impressive. It always felt like it was always the Bengals.
I mean, he was a
Playing with a
9-win
talent.
team last year without Burrow.
I mean, sure, but
The defense was a lot better last year
had
too.
a better offensive. The defense was a lot better, but also the offensive scheme in place was better.
Yeah. Yeah. And so
Yeah,
that
Anaromo had us all convinced last year.
And speaking of defense, my whole rant so far has just been about the offense. Just keep that in mind. Like this team, it feels
That is
broken.
true.
It feels broken because every single unit is not doing what they should be or what we expect of them, you know. And moving to the defense briefly, I'll keep it more brief.
Fred Warner is still great, but it's just Fred Warner.
Well, and
It's just Fred Warner.
that's the problem, right? So again, looking at the Seattle game, when Nick Bosa was on the field, the Seahawks had 6 points on the board, and he played for, it was a little over 3/4 of the game. The second he leaves the game, as soon as he left the game, the Seattle Seahawks won, like tripled the amount of yards that they gained in total on offense, and they scored 14 points to win the game. So it's not just Fred. It's also, even if Nick isn't the most productive player this year, he was fairly productive in this game though, despite leaving early. Even if he's not the most productive player ever, it's his mere presence that causes a lot of havoc in both the pass and the run games for the opposing team. He made a play last week where he was essentially being triple teamed and chipped by Zach Charbonnet, and then Gino throws a check down once Charbonnet gets out of his chip into the flat. He throws it to Charbonnet, and Nick Bosa turns around and tackles him for a loss. Like, this guy is still an elite playmaker, and he can really, really create when he has the opportunity. But when he's triple teamed every play, because he's the only scary person, the only person that people are consistently afraid of on this defensive line right now is Nick Bosa. And they should be, naturally. I think as far as a quick aside here, I think as far as pure like talent at the position, I think Nick Bosa might be the most naturally refined player at the position. There's another word I want to use for it, but I think you guys get what I mean, even if he's not the best right now and not the most productive either. But the other one is Fred Warner, right? And Fred is a complete game changer, and I love Fred so much, but he is only Fred, right? And the real problem with the linebacking core right now is not having Greenlaw there. And hopefully we get Greenlaw back. Hopefully they don't shut him down for the season just because we're feeling like out of reach. I feel like this is a perfect time for him to come back because this defense really needs that kind of passion from Dre Greenlaw. But opposite Fred Warner, we have been playing Devondre Campbell, and he has been
Bro,
terrible.
The butterfly effect of Dre Greenlaw getting injured, walking onto the field in the Super Bowl is crazy.
It's unbelievable.
Do you think that's when people realize Chiefs devil magic that they got going on?
If he doesn't get that freak injury, you guys win the Super Bowl.
Probably.
I'm convinced.
But that very much might be the case. But again, with the Super Bowl, there are a lot of other mistakes that the 49ers made. And if any one of those mistakes we don't make, we still win. You know what I mean? So it really was a lot of mental errors too on the 49ers part. But anyway, I digress. Yeah.
But also, because this should be mentioned, because Lenore just got a big contract extension. What are your thoughts on that with this?
I love Lenore. I think he and Renardo Green are going to be the future at the cornerback position for the 49ers. Charvarius Ward is in his last year of his contract, so I don't expect him to be re-signed unless he takes, similar money or less money than his current contract.
That's a pay cut.
But yeah, it'll be Lenore and Renardo Green, who's a rookie this year, and he's shown really good flashes. He's been impressive so far. So that's going to be the future of the cornerback position. And I love Demo. He's gotten better every year that he's been a pro, and I've been singing his praises for a couple years now. But the real problem,
so weird that the Niners have so many players playing well without any wins, without any win really to show for it.
And that is what the real problem is with this defense in particular. Now, I talked about Shanahan's coaching and scheme and drop back game and everything, and how that's a big problem. And I think we need someone to come in and help him out with that and guide him, or at least be one of those people that can rein him in. Like I said, the defense, I cannot believe how poorly coached this defense is. Nick Sorensen and Brandon Staley have done a horrific job week in and week out with this defense. In quarter by quarter in each game this season, we consistently, with each subsequent quarter, get worse in PFF grades and DVOA per quarter. In the first quarter, it's like we're like first in the NFL. In the second quarter, it's like 6th or 7th in the NFL. Then the third quarter, it's 13th. And the fourth quarter, it's 28th or something at the very bottom. That is horrible.
32nd.
It is unbelievable, right? And it's obviously player execution has a lot to do with it as well. You know, players not being clutch in the right moments and blah, blah, blah. But it really is scheme and coaching. Like I said about the Nick Bosa thing, how he's on an island and there's nobody else around him. This isn't really a talentless defensive line. On the opposite side, you have Yetur Gross-Matos, who is a interesting gadget edge piece, who has done decently in the times that he's gotten. He's been injured as well this year. First game back from IR, he got a sack on Geno Smith this week. They have guys on the interior that are better run stoppers than they are pass rushers, but again, they're missing Hargrave. That's another thing to keep in mind. Leonard Floyd has not been nearly as good as he was in Buffalo, for example, but he's been a capable enough player. But the real problem with this defensive line is that nothing is creative on this defensive line. I would not be shocked if you read a stat that said 95% on 95% of dropbacks for the opposing team, we're only rushing 4, and it's the same 4 guys with their hands in the ground every play. Every single play. There is nothing creative about this pass rush. There are no stunts. There are no fun blitzes. They probably are one of the fewest blitz rates in the NFL, I would imagine, because every time I see them on defense, they are never blitzing the football. And it's pathetic. Like, I don't understand how a lot this season. Like, Brock Purdy's actually one of the few people that has played well against the blitz this season, but so many quarterbacks are struggling against the blitz, yet we're the ones refusing to blitz.
Yep.
I don't understand it. And again, with the linebacker thing, with Devondre Campbell and Fred Warner, and this happened against Seattle. One of the only times we blitzed in the entire game was on the final drive of the game, where Seattle went in and got the go-ahead score to win the game. It wasn't on the touchdown play, but earlier in the drive, the one fucking time they blitzed, or at least it felt like it to me, they blitzed Fred Warner and put Devondre Campbell out in coverage. Tell me what's wrong with that. You're putting the best coverage linebacker in the NFL on a blitz, and leaving the complete liability in coverage in Devondre Campbell. You're setting him out there in coverage. That is the stupidest thing ever. I don't care if that's what the offense isn't expecting or whatever. You are actively making a liability over the middle of the field. And Devondre Campbell has been
strength.
Yes, exactly. Devondre Campbell has been pathetic in coverage this year. He's not been a good tackler. He's not been great in run defense. He's done nothing really good for the 49ers. And he is a shell of himself.
Campbell.
Oh, man.
I was going to say, his regression is insane, because that's the guy who was a top 3 linebacker a couple years ago.
And you would think he would be great opposite Fred Warner, but he's been horrible. Like, genuinely. We don't like to besmirch players in that way or be that rude to people, but I'm calling it like it is. He's been really, really bad at football this year. And it is very obvious how important 2 great linebackers are to this defense. And so Greenlaw has been a huge, we've missed him a ton. But the other thing that I don't understand is, if Campbell is so bad, why aren't we playing D. Winters? D. Winters is another linebacker that we have as a rotational piece, but every time he's on the field, he is way more physical. He's shown a lot more flashes. He might give up a play or 2 here and there, but this guy, I don't understand. I don't understand how they reconcile putting Devondre Campbell in over D. Winters. D. Winters is younger, he's faster, he's more physical. He wants to play. Like, it racks my brain. Like, the personnel issues and rotation is just, it's mind-blowing how we let a guy like Campbell out there every fucking play. It doesn't make any sense to me when you have a guy, again, like Winters, waiting on the bench for his opportunities every time he's out on the field. Drives me nuts, man. And
Fire in his
Yeah.
gut.
there is no fire in Campbell's gut, but yeah, in Winters, absolutely. Um, and
Mhm.
and that's just those are just again a few of the issues here in this rant. I don't want to go on too long. I've been going on long enough already. One last thing on the offense. Um,
Well,
Jordan
actually,
Mason.
I want to add on to that
Sure.
because if I want to add on to that real quick, because if you want to say why are you not blitzing Campbell instead of Warner, D. Winters is an amazing blitzer for a linebacker. Why is he
Exactly.
not the guy
Exactly.
in the blitz?
Exactly.
That's a big part of his draft profile in college was that he is a good fucking blitzer. Like, what the fuck?
Exactly. Like it just feels
God.
so. It feels oxymoronic. Like nothing that they do makes sense, and it should be the opposite of what they're doing. That is rotation.
Right.
That is personnel. That is coaching. And so yes, we need someone from the outside coming in. If we can get Sala back, I think that would work wonders for this defense. That would be one example. I don't know if we get Sala back. He's currently as a working with Green Bay right now. So we'll see with that. But look, if a guy like Vrabel doesn't get a head coaching job and he wants to come be the defensive coordinator for the Niners, like that would be another big like ad. But we really need somebody who is stable and proven at the defensive position because Sorensen has done a horrible job. And quite frankly, it's crazy that I'm saying this, but it makes me miss Steve Wilkes last year. I mean, it is really night and day how different the defense has been.
Steve Wilkes was at least creative.
Yes.
He made a bad choice in the Super Bowl, but outside of that, he wasn't that bad.
Yes.
But Brandon Staley is just, all right, guys, here's what we're going to do. 4-3, cover 3, and we ain't changing. We ain't changing.
Yeah.
We ain't changing.
So
Perhaps you treated him too harshly.
yeah, literally, that's the meme. So yeah, and again, it's not the personnel just on defense though; it's on offense too. Okay. My last point, and then we can move on because I've going on a long time, and I don't like to shit on my Niners like that. I still love them. I'm picking them this week. I think that they can turn this around, but a lot has to change if they want to turn it around, and it has to change quickly. And it is really going to suck if like Brock doesn't play this week because then our season's over really at that point. It's really going to suck if Nick isn't playing either. It sounds like he probably won't though. And Brock is still day to day, so he could still play. As long as Brock is on the field, we have a shot at winning. I genuinely believe that. I think through all the adversity this year and even through his underwhelming performances, I think he has showcased a ton of poise. I think he has shown that he is a capable player, like very, very capable player. And if the price isn't too high, and I don't think it will be, I think Brock, is in that kind of headspace. I think this person easily deserves $45 million a year. Not even a question. My last point, very last point.
You say what number did you say?
45.
45.
If Tua and Herbert are getting over 50, Brock's gonna get more than 45, bro. I guarantee.
I'm not
Well,
I'm not so sure. We'll see, but
I think he might take less.
that's
Well,
part
he
of
might take less.
that's part of my
sure,
point.
But
That's part of my point as well. But anyway, we'll get to there when we have to in the off season. But my very last point, and again, it's about personnel, it's about rotation, but it's on the offensive side this time. And on Sunday, and since McCaffrey's gotten back, actually, do either of you want to guess how many carries Jordan Mason has had?
0.
Jacob?
5.
He's had 3 carries since McCaffrey's come back. This is Jordan Mason, who was top 5 in rushing yards before his own injury, but through the first half of the season. Top 5 in rushing yards. Jordan Mason. Okay? Garendo, in relief of Jordan Mason, who looked better and better and better every week that he played against Seattle, right? The last time, not this time, but the last time in Seattle, where they amassed more than 200 yards of rushing on the ground, rushing offense. Garendo was a big part of that. And he had a huge game against Dallas as well. He hasn't had a single carry since McCaffrey's come back. Don't you think that McCaffrey, you're kind of running your star player who just came back from injury, you're kind of running him into the ground? This is the highest snap percentage.
It's like a desperation type of thing, like 100%.
But it's just this is just brain dead, and this is not like a Shanahan thing.
No, 100%.
In years past, Shanahan
100%.
has never been afraid of rotating guys. Like that's what I don't understand. It's just so bizarre. It's so bizarre. They've returned to some like archaic, rudimentary form of the 49ers that we've never seen. And again, that's why I think that they can turn this around, because this is not characteristic of this squad. And I sure hope it's not going to be in the future. But, how are you not mixing up your running backs? In the 3 carries that Mason has gotten, I think he's gotten like 20 yards. He's been efficient, and he's getting past the first tackler. He's been quicker so far than McCaffrey behind the line, but I mentioned why, with McCaffrey's first step. Why isn't he getting the ball? It is just bizarre. And that's why I say this team is broken right now, and it can be fixed. And there are very clear ways that they can fix it, but it's about how quickly it'll fix and if it's not too late already. A lot of really big spiel and rants, but I think it needed to be said. I appreciate you guys giving me the time.
It sounds like a lot of work. It sounds like a lot of work to be done in such a short amount of time, right?
Well,
I'm not saying that it can't happen.
It makes no sense, because like in today's day and age, it's so fucking obvious that you need to run multiple running backs in order to have Jahmyr Gibbs is one of the most high talent running backs in the league, and he gets 50% carries at most, maybe 40.
Mm-hmm.
Like, look at the Lions, look at the Dolphins. Two of the teams with the best running games in the whole league. I mean, they
right.
Run
and I'm not a
fucking
Bijan fan, but Bijan's a good talent, and you still see fucking Tyler Algier get plenty of fucking carries, because it benefits the team to have everyone get carries. There's just so much evidence to support why you should be doing that, and the what's it called? Like, just inability to make changes and adapt to modern NFL is holding a lot of teams back, but especially the 49ers.
And that was my point with the old money thing, right? Adapt or die, and they're not adapting right now. They are they are actively trying not to adapt. And Mason is not a Tyler Algier either. Like, he was top 5 in rushing in the first half of the season. Like, this is a capable every down back,
Well, I
know Algier's not
very capable.
I understand, but you get my point though, right? Like, he had a big workload and he made it count. He paid it off.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway. And here's why the 49ers are winning this week against the Packers.